This is Market Pathways, your premium guide to global medical device regulation, reimbursement, and policy. Become a part of the global Medtech community at mystrategist.com. On this episode of Market Pathways, Stephen Levin, Editor-in-Chief, speaks with Olivier de Aros and Ari Silverman, partners with Mavi Technologies, boutique investment bank that specializes in cross-border China medtech transactions. The trio discuss new Chinese medtech regulations, what this means for the industry, and the possible opportunities. This interview was recorded prior to the new regulations going into effect on June 1st, 2021.
I appreciate both of you hopping on this call. Olivia, I had mentioned to Ari that, we've been watching some of the changes in the upcoming device regulations in China that are supposed to become effective June 1st. And just wanted to see if you guys have a perspective on that, because obviously it's something we continue to follow, and would be interested in getting your perspectives and any of your colleagues might suggest if you think this is a major impact. By the same token, if you say this is really, this has been talked about for a while, this has been anticipated, it's not that big a deal, I appreciate your guidance and judgment as to whether these are significant, and again, particularly for companies that are outside of China looking to do business in China, from a medtech perspective.
To try to answer your first question of is it a big deal or not, and then trying to give some flavor of it. It is a big deal, according to my opinion. I think the pace of reform keeps increasing very fast and in a meaningful manner for medical device in China, in particular for foreign medical device companies looking for registration in China. We can talk about maybe some of the big topics. The first one I would say is that I will bring, and there's a lot to be said in that domain, and we can bring some of our Chinese colleagues to go in details, but the key word is innovation. Innovation, whether it's from China or outside of China, innovation is a priority. So they facilitate a lot of the procedures for those innovative medical device companies. To the point that, and we can try to go into the details with some of our Chinese colleagues, we have now use case of companies, Western companies, who decide to start their clinical trial in China. We knew that it's faster to get patient enrolled in China and probably cheaper, but we always had concern about, NMP will anyway not validate something that has not been validated in the US. We're talking about innovation, something that is not existing.
Right.
And I think this is also changing. So to that extent, from here, it seems to be something.
Can I ask you something on that point? What is the current state with the NMPA regarding clinical data from patients in China versus patients outside of China? In other words, what are the requirements for companies that are looking to get innovative medtech devices, on the market in China? Is there an expectation that they need to have Chinese clinical data, or will they accept a certain amount of data collected from outside of China?
They will accept some data collected from China, especially for innovative products, and especially also for products that are answering what they call serious life-threatening diseases. So they will really facilitate.
Sorry, just to clarify, Stephen, Olivier is giving you the answer post the order. Was your question post or pre?
I'm trying to assess how things have changed. So kind of a little bit, kind of compare the current situation and what it's going to be like after June 1st.
So yeah, for example, we have a client which is developing some mitral valve repair techniques, products, and they don't have any Chinese patient data. They are classified as an innovative device in China, and they are allowed to come here without any clinical trial. It's a class 3 device. It's something that is a few years ago would have required extensive clinical data from China, from Chinese patients.
I see.
This is an example.
So that's an area where things will change after June 1st.
Yeah, what I would like to do is maybe just give a step back. I want to, back to your point, Steve, around the transition. Let me step back and give a little bit of context about sort of what we're seeing and where this is coming from. I think that's important to understand.
Yeah.
In the last 18 months, China has gone through tremendous changes, and the factors that I think are really compelling here and what's driving a lot of it is unprecedented amount of value creation. If you look, every other week there's another $1 billion IPO. Division of Microport IPO'd for $6 billion. Payja's $1 billion. I mean, it's just the numbers it's unprecedented. It's biotech and medtech, but it's medtech also. Mm-hmm. And so there's an unprecedented amount of value creation, just never seen before.
Right. No, I follow you. Can I ask you a question on that point? And this is just in the consumer, general commercial press in the U.S., that there are distinctions drawn in certain areas, whether those areas are seen as a greater need in China, so therefore there's going to be more flexibility, if you will, with regard to trade. So in an area like medical devices,
yes,
where China looks to, products outside of the U.S. in a way they may not in other areas. Does that help Medtech, or is that distinction not accurate?
No, it does, but there is another effect of this. So, because I want to get back to your point, Stephen, because it's an important one. It was something that Olivier had also mentioned earlier in the call. So I'll come back to this.
Okay.
The point I was going to make is that what we used to see, where the Chinese were looking to invest or maybe even grow aggressively their business outside of China, they now are not feeling as eager to do so. So I'm not saying it's not happening, but this whole China going global, when you say, look, I've got so much value, I'm still underpenetrated right here in my own home market, and by the way, we're growing, and by the way, am I really welcome, outside? It seems to be. So there's so much to be done here. So what you're seeing is a double down on the Chinese opportunity in the Chinese market by China. Now, what you're saying and what Olivier's saying is there is still cooperation. By the way, there's still investment, but there is still cooperation. So the Chinese in this order, absolutely one of the themes of this order is recognizing not just innovation, but recognizing foreign innovation. That's explicit in the order. Okay. And therefore, how can the Chinese work with foreign innovation? And that's where you get, the relaxing of constraints on regulatory hurdles, on the clinical trial data, and a number of different things. So there's a context of a focus on innovation, as Olivier had said, a real doubling down on the China opportunity within China, and a willingness to work and recognize that innovation is coming from the West, and how do we facilitate that for the Chinese market?
Okay.
And to elaborate, I'd like just to, if I understood your question, Stephen, on this notion of like categories of technologies,
right,
on which cooperation is promoted, or categories where we compete, basically. Yeah?
Right.
And so medical device and more generally healthcare technologies are probably, if they are probably in the red category, in the compete category. I'm not just talking about the Chinese vision, but the American vision also, as it's perceived from here. Nevertheless, we bankers are having no problems to do those deals. So our deals are passing through standard procedures called foreign direct investment procedures. We also do small deals, which are, in the range of $100 million or less. I guess that everything that will be slightly above, like $500 million, $1 billion and above, will be stopped.
Okay.
For political reasons. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening so far. This interview will continue after this short message. Market Pathways is the #1 publication that covers the people, challenges, and opportunities impacting the global medical device regulatory, reimbursement, and policy spheres. MyStrategist.com is your digital home to access all of our coverage and read the latest issue of Market Pathways.
I have a couple areas, and some of this may be too far into the weeds for you guys, but it may be something that we can address in the future with some Chinese colleagues. But I just made a couple of notes, and you tell me if I'm getting too detailed or not. But one area was the whole area of contract manufacturing and the concept of market authorization holders as one area that has been revised by the new rules.
Yes.
Another was the whole area of type testing flexibility that seems to have been changed. We've talked a little bit about clinical trial exemptions. That was another area that I had highlighted. And then kind of streamlined pathways. And I'm not just talking about, emergency use type pathways because of the pandemic, but also just generally for going to the point that both of you have made about the focus on innovative devices, the notion of coming up with streamlined pathways along the lines of what we call in the U.S. like the breakthrough devices, that kind of situation. So those are a couple areas that I highlighted. I don't know if either of you, if that touches on any areas that that either of you think are important as of June 1st.
Well, I'll start, Ari, and you interrupt me. You build up upon it on the notion of market authorization, and there is, as you've seen, some flexibility that the reforms is bringing. So now it's easier, even though you're not the manufacturer of the product, to manufacture the product in China. However, the sanctions for lack of compliance with quality standards and the overall process compliance are higher, much higher. So that's the common theme of what we understand from that reform: higher flexibility, higher sanction.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the Chinese breakthrough innovation pathway. We haven't looked at the details, but before the reforms, this was already existing. This was streamlining the procedures,
mm-hmm.
but when we on some specific cases for our clients, when we work together with specialized regulatory consulting companies to define those processes, we found out that all in all we will save 20% maybe of the timeline.
Okay.
It was not very significant, but this we need to look deeper maybe after the reform whether this green channel, as they call it in China, is becoming even more efficient than it was before.
And Olivier, what do you mean when I just want to make sure I'm clear, when you say green channel, what does that mean in China?
So it's a channel that you can access to in front of the NMPA if your product is classified as innovative, and innovative will refer to a certain degree of patents in China, registered in China. So they will look at the patents. They will look at also the application. Are you answering? Are you bringing a solution to a problem where there is unmet needs? So I think those are two dimensions. we should probably look at more details to give you. I may be missing one bullet point here, so with a bit of preparation, we can be.
No, that's helpful. No, your clarification was very helpful.
That's Green Channel, and yeah, it looks good. You have in particular, just like in the US, a preferential communication with the authorities of Beijing. You're basically talking to smarter people who are more reactive and more empowered for quick decision. So you have all those benefits also as being a labeled Green Channel, but you don't save a tremendous amount of time. It's we should look at again. We should do some simulation, but I don't think it's going to divide by 2. Your thing. You may save 10-20% of your timeline.
I understand. The other,
you build that relationship with the authorities that you can use for the next generation products, and here is also a very interesting thing. You can learn. The learning experience from the authorities is more valuable.
The other thing I understand is that they increased the penalties.
I was about to mention that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was literally about to mention that, because that's the other side. Is they're doing it on a number of different areas. They're doing it around. And we just for some of the details around illegal importation, violations of regulation by e-commerce, administrative penalties for overseas registrants and their agents. There's a whole list. Those who employ personnel who are prohibited from, engaging in med device work, that kind of stuff. But if I were to step back from the details for a way, obviously the details are important and we can spend some time on that. But if I step back at it, I think there's a whole list of increased penalties. And I think what's underlying that is the further legitimization and professionalization, if you will, of the Chinese medtech industry. And what that means is by cleaning up and getting rid of bad actors, in a space where again you're seeing strong local players emerge with massive market caps. China's again trying to continue to push to further improve the quality of the industry and industry players, and I think that bodes well for if I'm a Western medtech CEO. I'm trying to think about what I can do. Some of the messages here for me are China's becoming, I can get more legitimate partners, partners at scale. Things are going to get easier because I don't necessarily have to do my trials. I can start thinking about my development program. There's also one of the things Olivia and I talked about is, there's even, we could think about an angle. There's an opportunity to, as Olivia mentioned earlier in the call, to actually use China now as a place for as part of your development program. Some advantages, from a regulatory perspective, but also again, this sort of notion of penalties, keeping out bad players. It only works to, I think, strengthen, the nature of the industry.
The full article providing analysis of new medtech regulations in China is available in the July issue of Market Pathways. Read strategically on mystrategist.com.